Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's edition of Sisters Corner. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, and as we all know, International Women's Day is about celebrating solidarity, raising awareness of key issues that are affecting women all around the globe, in the UK and right here in Bradford. So today with me I have two wonderful women who are strong, powerful in their own way. They're contributing to society and they're trying to help other women, progress and develop themselves. And so it's great pleasure. I welcome Aisha Ali Khan.
Thank you.
And Nusrat Mohammed. So assalamu alaikum both of you.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and see us.
Absolute pleasure to be
Yes,
here, Amira.
absolutely.
Thank you for inviting us.
No, it's a pleasure. And so could you just tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll just start talking, because I'm so excited. There's just so much to talk about in this area. We've made progress, as society, but I don't think it'd be unfair to say we've got a long way to go yet. So before we launch into all the questions we've got to ask and try and answer between us, so Councillor Nusrat Mohammed, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
My name is Nusrat Mohammed. I'm a councillor with the Bradford Council. I represent the Heaton and Frizinghall ward. My background is in community development. I've been involved in community development for over 30 years, and from that it was a sort of a natural progression into politics. I have 5 children, 4 of them are girls, so empowering women is very high on my agenda. I love what I do. I really enjoy what I do. I get to meet all kinds of people from different walks of life, men as well as women, but I particularly enjoy working with women and empowering them to fulfill their dreams, and sometimes dreams that they're not even aware of. So that's me in a little nutshell.
Yeah. Fantastic. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. I really can't wait to get to know more. And I should have said at the beginning actually, these are two wonderful, opinionated women, which we like, actually, because why shouldn't you have opinions? So Aisha, tell us a bit about yourself, please.
Well, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm also a teacher, I'm doing a law degree, and I also write and blog and campaign. I'm a member of the Shipley Feminist Zealots as well, and I just like fighting against injustice, to be honest.
So you're, would it be fair to say, a fair and equalities campaigner?
Absolutely, I believe in gender equality, but I also believe everybody should have equal rights, and I campaign on those issues.
And by equal rights, do you mean we should treat everyone the same, or?
I think everybody needs to be treated with respect, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging we all have different roles in life, but why do we not then acknowledge that we need to treat everybody with respect?
So treat everybody with respect and actually give them the same opportunities to prosper and do well, and have the same opportunities, because we don't all have the same starting point.
No, unfortunately we don't.
Necessarily, do we? So we're here to talk about gender equality.
Yes.
And I might be a little bit sort of devil's advocate with you, if that's okay. So do you think we have achieved in 2017 gender equality? Are men and women exactly the same? Do they have the same opportunities in life? Do they have the same barriers in life?
Do you want to start off?
No. I think the simple answer to that is no, because women have certain roles and men have certain roles. In the society that we're living in at the moment, we find that those roles overlap, yet it's seen as everybody's got the same rights. But when you look at what women have on their plate and what men have on their plate, I'm really sorry to say, I think women have more on their plate.
So in that, are you sort of alluding to the fact that, yes, men can work, yes, women can work, but where women are working, as in paid work, obviously women work very hard at home, keeping home and family, but
Absolutely.
In paid work, that they still have, in a way, more challenges? Is that?
They do absolutely have more challenges. I mean, I'd like to refer back to myself in terms of my own personal experience. As I mentioned earlier, I have 5 children, 5 children totally out of choice, because I absolutely love children. But then I have a commitment to my children, but yet I want to have a career as well. As you said, I am very opinionated and I want my views to be heard, and my views matter as much as anybody else's do. But I want to be there for my children as well. So for me, balancing the two sometimes becomes very challenging. And over the years, it's taken a lot of practice for me to actually get there and think, okay, can I sort of balance this? And in my family, what we tend to do is that we work as a team, because if we weren't a team, I couldn't have a career out there and bring my children up, sort of thing. And as Anya said, I have the role of mother, daughter, you know, as a carer for my mother at the moment, and so many other demands on my time as well. So juggling it does become quite a challenge.
Yeah, but then what you've just said there is your husband is also your support mechanism and system as well.
Absolutely.
So it's a whole family effort.
Absolutely.
And I think that's beautiful actually, because when you are out there contributing to society as well as to your own family and raising a healthy, well-adjusted, you know, brood of children as well is a really big
it's an achievement.
It's an achievement,
yeah,
and it's an absolute benefit to society actually, because what you're doing is, you know, you're creating the next generation of caring, concerned community members. But if your husband wasn't on board with that, supporting you, you know,
it would become extremely difficult. Absolutely, absolutely, totally agree with you that it would become extremely difficult for me to be able to do that. And I think also we need to understand the kind of society that we're living in at the moment. When I was growing up, there was a certain view of society, and this is what we do and this is what we don't do. Since then, things have changed so much, and you know, having daughters that are now stepping out into the world, ready for marriage and ready for careers, and you know, minds of their own of what they want to do. It's
you have daughters. You let them have a mind of their own.
Oh, absolutely.
That's very controversial, Nusrat, honestly.
I can't stop them, Amria. And my husband is extremely supportive as well. That is how he wants to bring up his daughters as well. So yeah, it does get challenging, and I think for me what's really important, Amria, is that women have a choice. They have a choice, and if they want to have a career, that is their right to have a career. If they choose to have career breaks and have children because they love children, as I do, then that is okay as well. But when we talk about the job market out there, this isn't taken into consideration.
Right. We'll come back to career, employment and jobs, and you know what happens when you have a family, etc. But Aisha, just that question that I put there: do we have gender equality?
I think in some respects we do, especially on paper. Legislation, we're protected, we've got, you know, rights at work, we've got rights not to be discriminated against. Also issues like pay as well, we should be protected, but in reality it's actually quite different. We still have a gender pay gap, which we shouldn't have. We still have women who are being discriminated against based on what they wear and how they look and how old they are and so on. I mean, these are issues that we're still fighting for, and as a committed feminist and somebody who believes in gender equality, these are issues that will never go away until we basically are equal in all sense of the word equal. But I just want to say, you know, hats off to people like Nusra and other working moms who basically run a household, raise amazing children, go out as well, have careers as well, and you know, are positive role models for themselves, for the children that they're raising, for the rest of the community as well. And I do think that you know, this kind of sort of achievements can't be possible unless there's cooperation, there's consideration, there's respect within the family home as well. I mean, I have lots of people that I know, friends and family, and also work colleagues as well. They will do a full working week, and when they finish a working day, they'll go home and then they'll start handi roti, cooking, cleaning, looking after the children, you know, doing all the stuff at home, and they don't get a chance to switch off until it's bedtime. And even then, you know, they have to get up early and pick up the slack. And I do feel that this is an area that we can really kind of approach men and say, look, give us support. Help us out. You've described a beautiful home environment just now. You know, you've got support from your husband. It's a partnership. You're working together. It's teamwork. But actually, there's quite a lot of households out there where this isn't possible. It's not happening.
And that's something that I find quite interesting actually, because what you've just described there, that spirit of partnership, and you know what? I'm not casting aspersions, right? But I'm going to guess that you still do the lion's share of housework. And the reason I'm saying that is there's some research done, you know, in sort of Western countries, which looked at, you know, we always think of, you know, like Muslim families as a bit more backwards, a bit more traditional gender roles, etc. So that's why I'm talking about. So Western countries, there were, it was a documentary on one of the TV channels, I can't remember which one, and basically it was looking at all these couples, and they'd put cameras all over, and they did a time-lapse study of who did the lion's share of the housework, and it didn't matter how much the woman earned, how much the man earned. In all of those scenarios, it was the woman. And it's interesting because I have this in my house. My other half tries to help out and stuff, but it's not, you know, straight away. It's like it's still my responsibility. So absolutely, he'll do the hoovering, he'll do his bits and bobs. You know, some days I'm coming home late, he'll do a bit of cooking, but it's still underlying. It's still my responsibility, and that's, in a way, I don't rail and rant against it, because that's kind of for how he was raised and where he was raised. That's like, you know, light years beyond anything he would have thought of doing once upon a time. So he's doing, you know, alhamdulillah, in that sense is fine. But it's really interesting because I used to think it was just Muslim women who had these challenges. The role I have, I meet a lot of women from lots of different backgrounds. And I remember when I was 25 and me and my husband were going to start to live together, and my mother was actually, I wasn't 25, I was 22. And my mother was actually really poorly. She was basically dying with cancer. And there was some district nurses, and, you know, they heard my husband was going to come over and stuff. And I was a bit anxious and a bit nervous about, you know, being married with family responsibilities, all of that kind of stuff. And I remember describing to them, they were saying, well, what are you worried about, love? And I said, well, I'm not really good at cooking. I'm not very good at cleaning. Those are not things that are priorities in my life, you know. I was very much into volunteering. I was a school governor. I just started my first jobs out of university, you know, and I really wanted to get involved. I was on loads of different committees, all sorts, you know. And
you're very active, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You had a life outside of the home.
Yeah, and I was so excited, and I'd not really bothered much. And my mum, bless her, hadn't really driven me into the kitchen, kind of thing. I'd help her out, but you know, so that was one level of anxiety. And then what I'd started that conversation with them was, well, you know, your men are like this, and our men are like this. And they went, hang on, love, I'm a district nurse, and I've been a district nurse for 20 odd years, and I am going to go home. My husband will be home, but he will have put his feet up and he'll wait for me to make his tea. That was such a revelation to me, because you kind of led into thinking that one community lives a certain way and another, and that's the thing about gender roles. But the other thing that's fascinating for me is, you know, what you were describing, that spirit of friendship, that spirit of partnership and support is in the Prophet's time. Him and his wives, the examples are there, so why aren't we following them?
It's a really good question, actually, and it's something that when we have these discussions and we have groups of women that come together, and we do raise these as valid points of discussion, that, you know, the sort of sunnah was established 1400 years ago, and there was nothing degrading to pick up one's own plate or mend one's clothes or help out in the housework, but we seem to have regressed massively, and you did mention this.
1400 years worth of regression in terms of Islamically, it feels like.
But again, not everyone's the same, and you know, when I think about it, sometimes when my mum obviously is getting older and she's been unwell for many years, and sometimes I can't get home in the evening to cook, so my dad will make roti. In fact, my mum had a heart attack when she was 36 and the heart bypass at 37. So when I was 11, 12 years old, she'd spent nearly a whole year in intensive care. And I didn't know the first thing about cooking, cleaning, anything. But my dad taught me how to make atta, he taught me how to make roti, he taught me how to make handi as well. So a lot of my learning came from my dad. And I remember back then there was no shame in that. It wasn't seen to be something that was wrong. And but now, that was 20 plus, actually quite a long time ago.
You're not wanting to give away your age. It's all right, we won't make you.
But now I look and I look at situations where women are going out to work, to study, to volunteer, and they go home and then they've got to do the housework. And I do think that it's kind of unfair as well, because that they never get a moment off then. And I know how hard it is to work a full day's work, and then you just want to go home and have a nice cup of coffee or tea and just recharge your batteries, but you can't because you've got responsibilities.
But that's one of the reasons as well. When you started talking earlier about the employment and, you know, career breaks and things, one of the things that I've realised, I don't have children. I have a cat who relies on me when I go home on an evening. But she's absolutely. She's not too demanding. But what's interesting is, so therefore, if I'm at work and I need to stay back to finish something and I must finish it, or something happens and I need to go somewhere, I can do it at the drop of a hat, pretty much, you know. If obviously it's the husband's day off, I'll you know, consult him and let him know what I'm up to. But generally, you know, I can just do and go as I please.
You've got very flexible.
Absolutely, life. And it's because it sounds awful, but it's because I don't have those additional responsibilities. But in a way, that's what a lot of men, not all men, and please, you know, I don't want anyone to think we're having a go at men. And different families work in different ways, and you make it work for you. But we're just unpicking some of the issues, and we're, you know, actually. Very honestly, I think talking about quite personal things to ourselves. So it's really interesting, because what I got thinking is actually that's where another part of the problem, isn't it? Because it is changing, and to be fair, it is changing, but mums tend to have the school run. Yeah. So work they do, you know.
My husband does the school run.
Yeah, it is changing. Yeah, it is changing, like I said.
Because I can't fit it in with the kind of work that I do, and it was a case of sometimes I was doing it and then it was, oh, can you go pick the kids up? So he's taken on that role. And I think coming back to what you're saying, Amira, the role that I'm in at the moment, being out there in the community and seeing how we've developed as a Muslim community, my worries are that we're not adapting. We're not adapting, and this is time for it's the era of the new generation. Our generation has accomplished so much, sort of thing, and we've got them to a certain point. Now we need to start accommodating them. You know, that if our young girls are going out there and getting degrees and getting the first class degrees and wanting to become doctors and pharmacists, there are certain demands that are going to be upon them. And as you said, then the other things need to be taken into account, because most women that I talk to out there say, yes, we want a career, but we want the other side as well. We don't want to have to pick and say, well, if you're going to be a career woman, that means that, you know, you can't have a family. And it shouldn't have to be one or the other, and they should be able to have both. And the only way we're going to be able to achieve that is by empowering our men to say, look, it is okay for you to be part of this equation and work as a partnership, rather than segregating the roles and assuming that, you know, the wife needs to be doing the cooking or the school run is her job and not my job, and start mixing and matching.
And you know what, it'll probably be just a lot more fun, because you know what, if someone my thing is, it is a bit mixed up in our house, and it could do with a lot more mixing, if I'm honest, but you might have a natural aptitude for something you didn't think. So, like, I've got a nephew who loves sewing, and it sounds funny because he learned to sew in school, the little bits he did, and he absolutely, when he talks about, he's 13 or 13 now,
oh, bless.
And when he talks about sewing and he does little projects at school, his face lights up. So recently I've been thinking, how can I encourage that? He has no particular design flair, so I'm not imagining a fashion designer here, but what I'm thinking is a creative hobby where you're making something that's just good for mental well-being. So, you know, he may go on to, I don't know, he might become a plumber, and he might become an architect, I have no idea, but you know, if we can encourage these things that, and so there's no gender bias there. When I talk to him about it, I'm going, oh, fantastic. Shall I get you some material? Do you want to? And I said, I've got a craft book. Why don't you take it? You can. And he looked at me really funny, because it's like she's giving me work to do.
That's probably the first time that he has actually had somebody say to him, well done, this is fantastic, carry on. It's actually quite funny when you were mentioning about, you know, gender roles and so on. On Christmas Day, I, you know, got the family over to mine, and we cooked, and I cooked, and you know, alhamdulillah, it was fantastic. But then I got tired. Come evening time, I was really tired, and my brother came later, and he actually did the washing up for me. And he really enjoys washing up, and he's going to kill me for saying this, but
but it's quite therapeutic.
He loves it. He likes filling it up with soapy water and getting his hands in. And I was just, at the time, I was just exhausted. I was just so grateful. And my son actually enjoys baking. Now, I can't bake to save my life.
Well, I'm discovering I can't either.
But my son, mashallah, he's been cooking and baking, and I think he's obviously picked it up from school, food technology. So he's been coming home and he's been requesting all the ingredients, and then he's been baking with his dad as well.
Mashallah.
And it's mashallah beautiful, and he's definitely got a talent. I don't know where he gets it from, because it's not from me, this baking stuff. And being part of the Shipley Feminist Zealots as well, where there's a lot of baking and lots of cake making and cake eating as well.
So you just want to have your cake and eat it too?
Yeah, I do actually, but it's just sad thing is I can't actually bake.
Yeah. So can I just pick up on something you said there, which is interesting? Did your brother eat lunch with you that day? Or did he just pop along later?
He popped along later.
Oh,
he was busy doing something else, and no, everybody else was there. And
the reason I ask, I'll tell you why, because just that thing where you said washing up for me, and it's something we've been talking about in our family actually, is when we get a chap who lives in the house, who's part of the household, who's part of the family, will say, will you do the hoovering up for me? Will you wipe the windows down for me? Yeah?
For me.
It's not for me. It's for our family.
Yeah,
it's for our
true.
household.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It's a very subtle change, but in a way, this thing about empowering men, we do take away responsibility. Not everyone, and I keep saying this, it's not everyone, and we're not having to go, people, but it's just something, it's like until you stop sometimes and question, you carry on doing what you've always done, because we never stop and think, well, actually, is there another way? And then when I've done that sometimes, when I've gone, well, and I've done it with family members, and I've gone, and what would happen if you didn't? And like, okay. It's, and it's literally, you get that sort of look, it's just saying, we can reinvent the wheel if we want.
Absolutely.
And I'll say to little girls, what are you going to be when you grow up? Are you going to be an astronaut? And I'll just pick careers just randomly, because I like the thought of them imagining themselves in that scenario, which
Absolutely.
doesn't matter which one they settle on with.
It's so important to break down the barriers. And in a way, when I went into teaching 12 years ago, it wasn't something that was common. There weren't that many Pakistani teachers who were teaching in and around Huddersfield, Kirklees, because I was living in Huddersfield at the time, and I felt it was a bit of a responsibility on my part to be that positive role model, so teachers can see, so pupils can see, not just young girls but young boys as well, that there's a woman who's in charge of a classroom. We've got to respect her. She's got authority. We've got to listen to her and obey that authority. And in a way, we've kind of created a generation of children, especially men who are now men, who basically have grown up with this notion that women, we can get away with not respecting them, not listening to them. There's a lot of sort of mollycoddling and mummy's boy syndrome that's coming through now, and I'm seeing this a lot with marriage breakups where you've got young men who are married and then they expect everything on a plate, on a golden platter, because that's what they've had from their mums and families growing up, and it's putting lots of pressure on marriages as well. So I think as mom, as a teacher, it's our responsibility as well.
So I would really like to explore a bit more around sort of role models and whose responsibility is it. But we're going to have to go to a break, so we'll pick up in a few minutes, inshallah. So see you on the other side of this break. Thank you.